12-inch Lucky Clover quilt block is made up of pieced quadrants, one for each leaf of a 4-leaf clover. For each quadrant, you will need 2 green rectangles, one light and one dark, measuring 3.5 inches by 6.5 inches, as well as 2 2.5-inch background squares and 2 1.5-inch background squares. Mark from corner to corner on the wrong side of the 2.5-inch background squares, and do the same on the 1.5-inch background squares. Place the larger square on the upper left corner of the light green rectangle, right sides together, and sew on the marked line. Place the larger square on the upper right corner of the dark green rectangle, right sides together. Trim a 1/4 inch away from the marked line on both units. Press to set the stitches and then press toward the background. Align the smaller background squares on the opposite corner of each unit, right sides together. Sew along the marked line for both units and trim a 1/4 inch away from the marked line. Press to set the stitches and then press toward the background. Next, you will need to sew the 3.5-inch background squares to your pieced units along the side with the little stitch and flip corner. This creates a lowercase p shape on the light green unit and a lowercase q shape on the dark green unit. Sew from the little stitch and flip corner with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both units. Press to set the stitches and then press toward the background square. You'll need 4 of the light green unit and 4 of the dark green unit. To assemble the quadrant, mark a diagonal line on the wrong side of the light green unit as shown, starting from the upper corner of the background square to the opposite bottom corner of the light green patch. Align the 2 units right sides together, pinning for a little extra security, and then sew along the marked line. The seams don't nest, so approach the intersection carefully, adjusting as needed, and be sure to remove any pins. Trim a 1/4 inch away from the sewn line as shown. Press this mitered seam open to complete the first quadrant. Sew the remaining quadrants with the same mitered seam technique. Keep the light green fabric toward the left side of the quadrant, and then sew the completed quadrants together to create a 12-inch Lucky Clover quilt block.